Hey, everybody, and welcome to Learning from Smart People. I am your host, Rob Oliver, and it is my pleasure to be with you today. My smart person today is Gunther Mueller. With 30 years of successful entrepreneurial experience, being the father of three amazing children, there is little that Gunther has not experienced personally in all aspects of life. Today, Gunther is passionate about sharing the 5-step magnetic mind method with as many people as possible so that they can also create the life they love. Gunther, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Rob, it is a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much for recognizing me as a smart person.
Absolutely. What I've said this before and I will say it again. I believe that everybody knows more about something than I do, and as a result of that, I can learn from every single person that I meet. So, while you are definitely a smart person and I plan on learning from you, don't let it go to your head because I think everybody around me is smarter than I am about something, which is a reflection on the fact that I'm surrounded by wonderful people. So
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I don't think anybody gets to a level of success without having been influenced and coached by others.
yeah, my analogy is just this: the president of the United States has a cabinet, and the reason that he has a cabinet is because he says, "I can't possibly know everything there is to know about all aspects of this country. I'm going to surround myself with the people who know, who are experts in these areas, and I will draw from them to do what is best as I see." Although there's a story about Abraham Lincoln who consulted his cabinet about something, and at that point, I think there were like 14 or 15 people on it. They all shared what their input was, and then they, put it to a vote. And he said, "I think the vote is like 15-1. I win." Because I'm
Right.
the president and you guys are advisors. So, that being said, in some ways, I think that this feeds into a little bit about what we'll be talking about today. Sometimes we have to choose our own path and we have to make our own decisions moving forward. Let's start here. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of your entrepreneurial journey? You've you've kind of come through a variety of things. Tell me a little bit about where you started and kind of what has brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up in New York City, in Queens, New York, and my dad was an electrical contractor. So I always had an example of someone, being in their own business and making their own paycheck happen. So I guess I grew up with that influence of not really ever wanting a job, but, having my own company, having my own business, and just making my own reality happen. And I did what most people did. I was good in school and went to college and did all that. And I was always a truth seeker. I was always trying to figure out, how does this thing we call life actually work? And in that entrepreneurial journey, started many companies, bought and sold, had success, had great failures as well. Nobody gets to success without falling on their face and failing and having to pick themselves up and to try again. But it's an exciting journey, right? And you learn a heck of a lot along the way. And I'd say I'm about halfway through life now. So having the knowledge and having that wisdom and that experience now really sharpens you in how to make decisions and being able to, I guess, extrapolate and foreshadow kind of what comes next. And so the entrepreneurial journey really has been a lifelong lesson. And then having coaches and having mentors, speak into my life and being that guiding force and then kind of adjusting that path a little bit. I like the transition from Abraham Lincoln in that I think the problem that plagues us in our society today is that we are not listening to our own voice and we don't really choose from a place of what we really love, but we choose our reality based on other things than what that small voice inside us might be speaking. Because let's face it, we have an overwhelming influx of advertising and social media and opinions from like the cabinet, except the cabinet is hundreds of thousands of people, you know,
Right.
that are trying to influence. That's why there's influencers in the world today, right? They're trying to influence you to do something. And Madison Avenue has been great at getting us to buy stuff that we don't need and do things that we may not necessarily want to do. So um, business has been that playground that I have learned the wisdom from.
Yeah. So I want to key on something that you said. How important do you think failure is in achieving success?
Well, all the great coaches and mentors will tell you that you really don't learn anything through success. Everything you learn is learned through failure. And that's how you adjust and make things happen differently in the future. Although my main message today is really going to be about not solving a problem. I'm going to come to you today from a point that we're not broken. There's nothing to fix. And we just need to we need to get good at making true choices.
Okay. Yeah, well, so I'd love to develop more on that because so many times people are hearing messages that are you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, and they begin to adopt those as the internal message that says I've been told I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or you're too creative or you're a dreamer or all of those things, and a lot of times when we get that input, the input is you need to change because there's something inherently wrong with you. And what you just said was you're not broke. There is nothing to fix. Tell me more about that idea.
Yeah, so what you just touched on is really the self sabotaging identities that we've created through life. And the human experience is really that of keeping us away from pain and sort of moving towards pleasure. Or sometimes it's just satisfaction or even mediocrity because we've been harmed or injured or experienced pain in going for what we really want. And so the identity that we craft through a lifetime can be laced with ideas of, like you mentioned, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not capable, I'm insignificant, I'm not perfect enough to have what I want, I don't belong to a particular tribe or group. And so we have crafted that identity in our being over a long period of time for one reason. It's not that we're wrong or that we're broken for doing that. It's we did it to survive. We did it to make it through this thing called life to try to experience less pain. And the truth is that today, wherever you find yourself, as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, as a lifelong learner, wherever you find yourself right now, you are in the position of power because the only power we have is the power to choose. And school hasn't taught us that. Life really hasn't taught us that the power that we have is really in the power of choice. And so it's not that we have to go back and fix ourselves. I mean, when we look at some of the great people out there that we put in the celebrity status, from Oprah Winfrey to Elon Musk to Michael Jackson or Prince or Madonna, or I think of the musical people or the basketball players or whoever, they don't have perfect personalities. They have not refined every aspect of their personality to be perfect to get what they want. What the one thing that they have done that you'll see as the common denominator is that they have focused on what they love to do. They are really good at that.
Right. Okay. So what I'm reading between the lines on what I'm hearing you say is talking a little bit about delayed gratification, that people are willing to settle for mediocre with no pain rather than going through some growing pains for the spectacular. Is that accurately summing up what I've heard you say?
Yeah, because in most of our experiences, we've tried things that did not work out. And unless there is some sort of persistence or resilience, and this is where what I'm going to share with your listeners today is really a revolution in the personal development space. It is like, what if it could be easy? What if it could be pain free? And I have to touch on the quantum physical reality a little bit. Okay. We've got 40 years of science now that shows us the nature of the universe. And one experiment or one reality I'd like to share with everybody is that when you study quantum physics, you'll find that what the scientists have found is that these particles that make up our reality, whether it's a quark or a photon, they got a million different names for these things, that particle does not exist until the observer intends to observe it. That is a powerful thing to understand because it means that we are actually creating our reality through our intention, through our thought, through our desire. Okay. Emotion and information come together to create the reality that we are actually experiencing right now.
Okay. Tell me more about that because in what you're talking about, it sounds like we become the creator of our own environment. Is that what you're saying?
You become the creator of your experience. Now, there's a couple rules, okay? When you create, you have to be able to see it. Everything that has ever been created has been created twice, once in the imagination, once in the mind. Let's take Elon Musk for a second, sending rockets and satellites into space and rockets that can land themselves. He first imagined that concept. And then it came into existence through a myriad of other minds that have worked together to actually create that thing in reality. Rule number two is your creation can't rely on other people because everybody else is creating their experience as well. So when you desire something, it can't rely on someone doing something the way you want them to do it. It can't be done in comparative terms, like I want more of something or I want less of something. We have to become very specific and clear on the thing that we would just love to experience. And your true choice and true desire can't be a stepping stone to get you to something else. It has to be the true end result, the true desire of something that you would just love to experience. And again, we have not been taught to come from that place of choosing something that we would just love to experience for the pure reason that we want to, right?
Yeah. So how do you empower people to make those choices? Because sometimes, like this is outside the box thinking. This is not what we've typically learned. So empowering them, how do you get them to kind of open their mind to what you're talking about?
Yeah, so through coaching, right, we determine what the true desire is, what the true choice is for someone by encouraging, let's say, some quiet time. Call it meditation, you can do it in yoga. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. You have to choose something that resonates with you, something that you can do on a consistent basis to really get in touch with what I'm going to call this super conscious side of your being. Everybody has it. Everybody is connected to the infinite field of possibilities. This is what the science shows us. The field is real. If you want to read a great book on it, it's Lynn McTaggart's book. It's called The Field. The experiments have been done. I don't have time to go into all of that with you right now, right? But let's just take our skeptical hat off for a second and say there's a field that exists and you are connected to infinite wisdom, infinite knowledge. Everything that you seek is connected to you. And so when you take a moment to really step back and not choose things from a place of, let's say, the process of elimination, which is, the lesser of three evils, or you choose by consensus, is like, what is my family and my friends going to, approve of or give me permission to choose, right? Process of elimination, consensus, choosing by default, even not making a choice is making a choice, right?
Right.
So becoming conscious and becoming aware of what we would truly love to experience is the first step. And really choosing an end result that we would love to experience for no other reason than we would love to experience it, or something that we truly want for no other reason than we just want it. And we don't have to tell a story around it. We don't have to rationalize it. We don't have to support it. There's no story that we need to tell around why we want what we want. It comes from a place of just desiring to experience something.
Very interesting concept. Now, does that what you're talking about, is that coming from an internal, like your connection to the wisdom and the knowledge and all of those things, is that coming from an internal source or an external source?
Everything you seek is coming from an internal source that is connected to that infinite reality, right? So that which you seek is not really outside of yourself somewhere else. It's when we go within and listen to that voice that's inside, and we've all heard it before. We've all have had experience of flow. We've all had experience of being stuck. We've all had experiences of oscillating, meaning like going 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. It's becoming aware. It's kind of like having that 30, 40, 50,000 foot level and being able to look at our life from that space and then choosing what we want without having to take other people's opinion into account, or what's popular, or what I'm told I should be like, or told what I should want. What is it that you really desire? What is it you really want?
What and okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that we are ultimately responsible for our own choices, and
Yes.
we can when we allow others to influence our choices, it it still is ultimately our choice and our responsibility. The filters that we have, the way that we handle it, may it's again it's our choice whether or not we allow the outside influences to be part of that.
Well, let me speak to that just for a second because we do have a layer of subconscious programming, the subconscious mind, and that is a program that runs just like Windows 10 runs on your computer, right? You push the power button, the computer comes up, Windows 10 is the operating system. You have no idea how Windows 10 works, right? All you know is that your computer wakes up and you start using it for productive purposes, right? So think of your subconscious mind as that program. And if self sabotaging identities, for whatever reason, have been laid in there, that is running in the program. Okay. You can put a desire in there to um, XYZ, have what I would just love to have. But if there's an I'm not good enough program running in there, it feels like, everybody else can achieve that, or other people are good enough to have that, but I'm not. And therefore, the experience and the reality becomes that you might get close to it. You might experience it a little bit, but you're really not good enough, or maybe you're not worthy, or maybe you're not smart enough, maybe you're not pretty enough, maybe you're not buff enough, or whatever it is to get that thing that you want. That identity programming has been laid in the subconscious mind. And in the magnetic mind method, we have a process in which we release that resistance. It's a process of just letting it go and identifying it, seeing it come up, what we call resistance that's in between where we are now and what we would love to have. We need to melt away that resistance. And when we do that, the identity actually gets to shift. And it's when the identity shifts that the current reality experience actually changes. And that truly is the process of manifestation.
Okay, what what I'm hearing a little bit then is a lot of times when people are they want to achieve something and they are able to achieve it, what they're looking at is, well, I did achieve it, but it was a one-time thing and I didn't achieve it fully, or they can and they're looking at the negative elements of the accomplishment that they have, and they're not looking at the positive. It says, hey, if I did this once, I can do it again, and I can do it again and again and again and get better at it, or receive it in a better way. And it's all about kind of what you're looking at and what you're focusing on. How does that resonate with you?
It resonates exactly in what you said. It is all about what you focus on because what you focus on grows. That is a quantum physical reality. Our focus is what grows. So if we are focusing on what we don't want, or we're focusing on solving a problem, guess what grows? The problem grows, and what we don't want actually gets more energy and it grows. So instead of trying to figure out and solve problems of how we're going to get what we want, we really just need to step out of that problem solving reality and move into a true creator stance. This is what I mean by becoming a super conscious creator, understanding that your power is in your choice. And I'm just going to share four of the top creative stances. They sound like this, they're choices, right? So I choose to live my true nature and purpose. A lot of people struggle with meaning and purpose and fulfillment in this life, right? What are they here to do? So when you choose to live your true nature and purpose, it's simply a choice. You could choose to be the predominant creative force in your life. And it's just, I choose to be that predominant creative force in my life and take that creator stance. I choose to live a life I love. That's all encompassing. That means money. It means love. It means health. It means everything. I choose to live the life that I love, or I choose to be healthy and vital. There are a lot of people struggling with health conditions, from heart disease to diabetes to cancer, you name it. The choice is not to beat the disease or to overcome a problem. The true choice would be to desire or love to experience infinite health and vitality. And when we focus on that choice, the quantum physical reality comes into alignment with that which we want. And so there is a little bit of a magical, serendipitous, coincidental feeling to this type of work. And we're allowing that quantum physical world to actually show up in a congruent way with what we would love to experience.
Okay, just a lot of my listeners are people that have a faith background.
Yes.
How does this have an interplay with the concept of God and faith?
So, I've explored all of the major faiths. It was a passion of mine. And I don't want your listeners to have to, let's say, qualify the grid of their faith. You don't have to be spiritual to do this. It's not a particular faith that sets you up correctly to be able to manifest. And, I've explored the Christian faith very deeply. I mean, the book starts off with you're created in the image of God, right? And what is God? God is a creator. And we kind of skip over that verse a lot of times. I have not heard a lot of sermons preached on that particular phrase, right? Because it's a very powerful phrase. When you even look at that, God spoke, and what creation is today was created. Now, I'm not a creationist, I'm not a Darwinist, I'm not any of those things. I just look at what is. And what the science has shown us and the nature of the quantum physical reality is that our intention, and I think all the great teachers and all the great faiths have spoken to this, that we do have a personal responsibility in how we choose to live our life, and those choices manifest consequences. And if we can just keep it that way, I think it fits into many faiths and many spiritual pathways and things like that. That look, what we choose, how we choose to live, it has end results, it has consequences. There are things that happen due to our choices and our intentions.
Yeah, and I I definitely agree with you that I think that one of the key elements of all of this is that it's kind of personal responsibility, it is personal choice, and the consequences of and the outcomes of those personal choices. Very, very interesting. So let me go back. I want to see if you can expand on something that you said a little bit earlier. You were talking about the resistance that, and a lot of times we look at resistance in the outside world to say that there are obstacles that exist in our lives, and we're getting resistance from outside. Is there that same resistance that occurs inside, and how do we kind of work through that internal resistance?
So the truth is that it is the internal identity, whatever resistance is there from the true choice actually manifests and expresses itself on the outside, because the experience of the current reality is congruent with the identity. If I have identity running in me that is I'm not worthy, we're going to have experiences of unworthiness. We're going to have experiences that give us evidence and prove to us that we're right. That's what the mind does, right? This you got to think of our life and what we experience as kind of like a holographic movie. Einstein said that there's only two things in the universe: there's information and there's energy. And so it is our intention, it is our belief systems, it is the emotion of what we combine with that actually manifests this experience. So we don't really have to think about whether it's an external resistance or an internal resistance. It is just resistance. And it's the thing that blocks us or keeps us from experiencing that which we desire.
Okay, so when when people are looking to you know find what they desire to, they've kind of identified what their goal is, and I think that you said this in our pre-conversation that you have to start with the end in view.
Yes.
And which I think makes sense because in life, if you're going on a trip, you don't just leave the house in the car one day saying we're going on a trip. It's always we're going on a trip too.
Yep.
Okay, um, and then how do you determine kind of the action steps that you take to get to your destination?
So the action step is very important because maybe your listeners have heard of the, law of attraction, the secret, things like that that have come into the field, and you've seen those things or maybe read some books or been to some conferences. The how we get there is not as important as the where. So like take a road trip, for example, you might say, I'm going from New York to California and it's going to take us 4 days. So we're going to spend 3 nights in a hotel and this is where we're going to take a break and this is where we're going to do it. In manifesting or in being a super conscious creator to create the life that you love in all aspects, you're not so much worried about the how, because the reality is that the circumstances, the people, the opportunities, all of that can just sort of show up and manifest. And that's kind of the magical part of this, right? But we're clear on what we want. And this is where also an awareness of our spiritual paradigms or our belief systems, they can also be limiting factors, limiting maybe what we are allowed to experience, what we have permission to experience. Possibly it's family history that is holding us back to a degree and giving us resistance of maybe what we're allowed to have, what we have permission to have. So listeners just need to maybe gather a little bit of awareness around that and just see what comes up, right? Just feel and see what comes up for you in that.
Okay. Let me, I'm thinking, your analogy driving from New York to California.
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple routes that you can take. You can
Yes.
go across the northern,
Yep.
go across 80 and 90 and that way, or you can go further south and go across whatever. And there are all kind of places that you can visit on the way there. How do you, even though there are different routes, how can you make sure that the focus on the destination doesn't take you away from enjoying the journey or at least learning from the journey that you're on?
Well, you just said there's things to see on any of the routes. There's different things to experience on any of the routes. So you can either consciously choose the destination spots that you want to hit along the way and just choose a route that you would just love to experience, or you can choose the path of least resistance. It may be the route that has the least amount of truck traffic on it, or it's the route that'll serve you best depending on the season that you find yourself in. Is it winter? Is it summer? Right? It could be just a general selection like that. But again, the end destination or the end true choice or end result is to wind up on the West Coast, right? If you're on the East Coast. So the how you get there and having the attitude of, look, the north is not going to be better than the south, and the south is not going to be better than the northern route. It's just going to be a different experience. And if I'm open to not labeling stuff as better, good, worse, or putting some judgment on it, that I'm just going to experience what comes, knowing that my true end result, my true destination is clear. Then we have a lot less maybe struggle or tension or anxiety in the process of getting to that true end result. Does that kind of make sense?
I think it does, and I think um, if I'm going to Florida for vacation, okay, from here in Pittsburgh, it's an 18-hour drive, and there are a number of different ways to do it. My choice is to say, okay, I'm getting in the car, and we are making at most 3 stops on the way down, and it's like the goal is hammer down. Let's get there, and vacation starts when we arrive. As opposed to sometimes there are other folks, and they're going to take the drive over 2 days. They're going to stop. They're going to be, and they're stopping multiple times, and they've got to stop for the restroom every 2 to 3 hours or whatever the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Their way to travel is not, it's not my way to travel, but it works for them, and my way to get there works for me. And I guess in that way, it kind of goes to that choice where you've got to figure out not just, what is my destination, and then the way that I get there is my way, and there's no judgment in that. It's just how it works for me. So, Gunther, you've shared a lot with us today, given us a lot to think about. If people are looking to learn more about you, where can they do that? What's the best way to handle that?
The best way is at dreamlifemasters.com. So that's where I'm about, dreamlifemasters with an S.com. There's three really good videos on there that I've cut that are long. They're 20-minute segments that really go into the process of manifestation and in detail into the 5 steps of how to become a super conscious creator to really create the life that you love. Look, I'm about helping people get what they want. And, just to say that, I mean, what if your desires, what if those things that you love is truly God's will for your life? What if you're supposed to experience those desires and manifest those amazing things that you've dreamed about? Anything that we can imagine, we can manifest. And the mind does not know the difference between imagination and reality. And that's where it starts. And I'd love to share some of that more information with your listeners. You can also join a webinar that I do. There's a free download on there also of really crafting, I would say, a morning or an evening ritual. So there's some cool stuff to take advantage of at Dream Life Masters. And if someone would love to experience this magnetic mind recode, I'd be happy to make it available to your listeners at Quest for the Quan, QuestForTheQuan. The word Quan comes from the movie Jerry Maguire. If you've ever seen that, Cuba Gooding Jr. is telling Tom Cruise, Jerry Maguire, that, look, I need the Quan. And what was the Quan? The Quan was respect. It was happiness, joy, family, love, money, respect. It was everything. That's the way he described the Quan, which is why I love that word. So questforthequan.com, I would do a one-on-one session with any of your listeners who would truly like to experience the magnetic mind method. It's about an hour and a half that I spend with people. Normally charge $397 for that. I'll do it for your listeners for $109, and it's only available at that questforthequan.com.
I appreciate that very much. I will put links to both of those down in the show notes so that people can find you very easily. Gunther Mueller, thank you for spending some time with us. It is time for 3 questions to establish your humanity. Are you ready for these, my friend?
I'm ready.
What is your biggest fear?
I think my biggest fear has always been there's 2 of them. It's either fire or drowning.
Okay, those seem like opposite ends of the spectrum, like water,
I know.
fire, incompatible.
I know. I haven't done any recodes on those fears yet for myself because I'm really not in situations where I'm going to drown or get burned up, I guess. But fire or drowning.
No problem. So, what is your favorite family vacation?
My favorite family vacation has always been skiing deep Champagne Powder in Steamboat, Colorado.
And do you get to do that often enough, or not? Not quite.
I've done it every year for 30 years. The kids have grown up a little bit and things are different today. But when it was a young family, that was our go-to all the time, was to go skiing as a family. And Steamboat has this amazing champagne powder, the kind of snow that you kind of blow on it and it just goes poof. And skiing through the trees is a magical experience.
Okay, this is a qualifier question, which are you a meat eater?
I am.
Okay, so if you're having a steak, what is your steak cut of choice?
I really enjoy, everybody thinks filet mignon or ribeyes. I enjoy a really good top sirloin because I like the combination of leanness and some marbling. And if it's done right, it has an amazing flavor. I was actually in the meat and seafood business for about 10 years. So I know quite a bit about great cuts of meat and seafood.
Okay, and you mentioned doneness. What is correct doneness on your top sirloin?
Well, that's a personal choice, but I usually go for medium.
Okay. I'm from Pittsburgh, and strangely enough, in Pittsburgh, it's well done. That's the only way that everything is cooked. So, not my personal choice, but from what I understand, that is the Pittsburgh cooking method.
Yep.
Gunther Mueller, thank you for being with me today. I appreciate you sharing. And for all my listeners, thank you for being here. And I will remind you that when you stop learning, you stop living. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.